Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of People Behind Tech here in Lisbon. Today we have a very inspiring founder who's doing something very impactful with the after cancer. Good morning, Mariana. Thanks for joining us here today. Another beautiful day here in Lisbon.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me. It's nice to see the sun out.
Yeah, so Mariana and I actually go back quite a bit right now, and she's doing something very impactful and amazing with the after cancer. Why didn't you tell everyone what you're doing right now?
Sure. So I'm the CEO and founder of The After Cancer. We are a digital platform for cancer survivors, and we operate in the US. I started this company from a really personal story. So I have a family history of cancer. I've had 7 people in my family go through cancer. And that made me kind of realize the ins and outs and the challenges of that journey as a patient and as a caregiver. And for me personally, the thing that surprised me the most was that cancer-free doesn't mean you're healthy. I think we have this idea that people go through treatment and then everything is okay. It's like a cold, it goes away, go back to your life. Right. And it's actually not that easy. And then the second thing is, as soon as you finish cancer treatments, you lose a support system that you had from your doctors, and they tell you to go back home and figure it out by yourself. But that's really hard because you're having health issues and side effects and mental health and dealing with going back to work, etc. Mm-hmm. And that's where I saw a lot of depression kicking in, a lot of kind of chronic health issues kicking in, and so I wanted to build something to support patients after cancer.
Wow, that's a very impactful mission there.
Yeah.
So did you see this firsthand in terms of the impact on, let's say, cancer survivors and how there's a lack of support and a gap in the system? I suppose this is not just an American problem, but a global problem.
Yeah, it's a global problem. So I experienced it here in Portugal with my family. And then at the time when I was starting the company, I was living in France. And so one of the ideas I had was wow, should I do this in France? And let's try to understand, is that a Portuguese problem or all over Europe problem? And then I started to understand this is a global issue.
Right.
As a society, we've put so much money in better diagnosis and better cancer treatments. And now we're dealing with the consequences of it, which are good consequences. It's more people surviving and survival rates increasing, but healthcare systems have not adapted because they're slow. And so it's impossible for the current oncologists to keep dealing with the survivors because they need to focus on new patients. There's not enough oncologists for everyone. But someone needs to take care of these patients because they're going through hell during treatment and then they're just not able to feel good afterwards, and they deserve it.
Right. So what's going on right now with the after cancer? Have you launched yet? And where have you launched? And what can patients or survivors expect from the platform right now?
Yeah, so we launched an MVP last summer in the US, focused in North and South Carolina. And that's where one of my co-founders is from, Dr. Chase Billy-Dordan. And we started to see traction of patients joining, paying out of pocket. We currently have a population of close to 300 patients who are active users of the platform. It's been a great learning story in terms of how to design and how to cater for these patients. So right now within our app, patients join and they get a care plan, and that care plan includes attending group sessions, Q&As with doctors or workouts or cooking classes and things like that. But they also get educational programs to follow. So if you had breast cancer, you're going to have a specific breast cancer educational program. And then we put these patients in small communities that are moderated so they can share experiences and meet. And that's been really impactful. We've run research since day one in terms of patient outcomes. And we've seen that in over 6 weeks, patients improve symptoms by 25%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are we talking about what kind of symptoms are we talking about?
So overall quality of life symptoms can be fatigue, depression, pain, things like that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So interestingly, the company is here in Portugal, but you're addressing your MVP is launched in the US. Tell us about the decision there. So yeah. I see that you went to Berkeley, and then also you just mentioned Paris. Quite a global story there. It's great to see global talents like yourself actually coming back to Portugal. Tell us a bit more about that journey and perhaps a decision of why the After Cancer here in Portugal rather than the US.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Portugal. I grew up here in Lisbon, and then I left when I was 18, and I came back 14 years ago. So I studied abroad in Italy and in the US. I worked abroad in the US, Italy, London, and Paris. When I started the After Cancer, I was living in Paris. As I said earlier, I had a brief idea of maybe launching it in France and decided not to for several reasons. But, and then I had Caroline, my second co-founder, because our COO was American, and we're like, let's do it in the US. That just makes sense. And so that's the US approach. Also, much bigger market. There's 18 million cancer survivors there versus less than half in Europe. So we decided to basically anything that it's commercial, clinical, it's in the US, we recruit out of the US. Anything that it's tech, back office, operations is based out of Portugal.
Okay.
It made sense for me, being Portuguese, to tap into the local market. There's really good access to talent, like salaries are lower.
Right.
It just made sense to do that. For me personally, it was a bit of a hard decision, like living abroad for so many years. I always had this idea that I would never come back. But it made sense for the business, and it came back to a very different city in a very different country. And
it's been thriving from a startup ecosystem perspective.
And I've always lived in very international ecosystems and communities. Like I lived in New York, I lived in London, like all of my friends were all over the world.
Right.
And when I came back here, I realized, oh, I can have that too. I almost have this like double life where I live as a traditional Portuguese with my like childhood friends and my family. But then I have this group of expats that we work with, we like hang out with, and that's been great from like a work-life balance perspective too.
Right, and so the team that you've put around yourself here now, is it a mix of Portuguese and international talents, and do they have experience scaling companies globally?
Yes, so it's funny enough that I moved here to build a tech team out of Portugal because I thought we're gonna tap into Portuguese talent, and our first hire was a French guy who also lived all over the world. And that's Thierry, our chief data scientist, who had experience similar to me. Like he lived in over 5 different countries. And I think that's what makes us like a really good leadership team in Portugal, because like the 3 of us have lived all over the world and share that in common. But also like worked in startups outside of Portugal. And now that we're starting to recruit for other roles, we always try to look for Portuguese or Portugal first, for sure.
Amazing. Could you tell us a bit more about your experiences so far launching this company in Portugal? What kind of support system was there, whether it's more systemic or whether it's a more interrelational perspective?
Yeah, so when I moved back here, I almost had to start from scratch.
Yeah.
Like I never lived here as an adult, so I didn't know anyone. Like I never worked here. So I started building my network within the startup ecosystem. And so we looked at what programs exist, what incentives exist, what grants exist, and made some decisions based on that.
Right.
So we first joined the program, which is in Covilhã. It's in the center of the country, called UBI Medical, which is a med tech program, very specific, and they're basically affiliated with a local university there.
Mm-hmm.
That works a lot with AI and healthcare. And so for us, it made total sense to be part of that program. And that also enabled us to apply for like local grants and even EU grants being based in Covilhã. And then the second thing that we did that would help us more from like a fundraising perspective was join Unicorn Factory in Lisbon.
Right.
So we just graduated from their cohorts, and that was a great experience. I mean, they introduced us to one of our first like investors who committed to join our round, and so that's been really good. So we were able to navigate the ecosystem and find who are the experts who are like really techies who can help us like build our product, and we have that in Ubi. And then who are the guys who can help us like navigate the ecosystem and startups and learn about growth and fundraising, and that's been Unicorn Factory.
That's amazing. So you spoke about Unicorn Factory. There's actually a lot of incubation programs here in Portugal, and there are actually a lot of them. I think 4 are actually in the top 50 in all of Europe, according to Financial Times.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's very high quality stuff here.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about your experience in that program. what were they offering? What kind of advice and mentorship? Anything for perhaps a founder that's thinking about starting something in Lisbon and perhaps needing that kind of support as well?
Yeah, so the program with Unicorn Factor, I think it went over like 2 or 3 months. They're very hands-off in a certain way. Like if you need help, they're there to help you and make connections. But it's also up to you to like make the most of it.
Right.
And then every Friday they call them rocket sessions. And so every Friday for 2 hours, they had a session where they invited guests to talk about like different areas of the business. And so it was a cool program because it was not only for me, the CEO, to be there was operational things. And so Caroline was the one joining the sessions and networking with people from ops. There was tech things, and so Thierry would join and network. So I really liked the fact that the whole team was involved and it not just me.
Multidisciplinary.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow, amazing. So what's next for The After Cancer? Perhaps tell us what you're excited about in the next 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. So one really cool thing happened, and we announced it yesterday.
Yeah.
We're joining an American Cancer Society program in the US.
Congrats.
And I cannot wait for the kickoff next week because I can really see how it will help us open a lot of doors and partnerships and growth in the US market. So that's like one of the big takeaways for the next couple of months. We're closing our pre-seed round. And so hopefully we'll get that done in the next couple of weeks I just want to go hands-on, move forward with like developing our product.
Back to building, right?
Exactly. I need to go back to building mode for sure. We have a lot of ambitions for this year in terms of partnerships, in terms of business development that we want to do. And we're in a phase where like the product needs to be in a place where we can show it and be there for our partners. And so that's the main goal.
Mariana, so how do patients or advocates find you and your platform? How do you first engage the user funnel?
So we're a direct-to-consumer platform. So patients can find us by going on our website and signing in. We have a subscription model that it's $99 per year.
Okay.
But we've also started since day one establishing partnerships. So we have nonprofits and health systems who pay for the subscription and offer it to their communities. So right now we get about 50% of our users through these partnerships, and they get sponsorship for 1 year within the platform.
Have you encountered any friction with regards to the out-of-pocket payment model? I assume most patients are used to having things covered by insurance.
I think unfortunately in the US, patients are used to paying things out of pocket. But yes, we've seen friction in cases with people that had financial instability because of cancer treatments. And so that we had to find, for example, a sponsor or a nonprofit that would like take that patient in to be able to cover their costs. So yes, we've seen that a little bit.
Okay. So closing out, any last words of advice, wisdom for any young entrepreneurs here in Portugal or thinking about moving even back to Portugal to start the startup?
Yeah, as I said, Portugal is a very different place from what it was 14 years ago when I left. Just calm and I think there's a lot of opportunities. You just need to network in the way that you would need to network in any other cities, right? It's understanding what's the ecosystem, what can you get from who. And for sure, talent is great. And I think something interesting is that right now it's not only the Portuguese talent that it's great, but it's also the expat talent that is great. We see that when we were hiring for a backend developer, and about like 50% of folks were expats living here.
Wow.
Yeah, who applied, which is something I didn't expect, and that's cool because I always thought expats here were digital nomads working for like American companies.
Right, freelancing overseas.
Exactly. And that's definitely changing, and so I love that.
Wow, amazing. I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation with Mariana and learned about her journey. Also very inspiring to see some of these experienced global travelers moving back to Portugal to start a company. Those who want to find out more information about The After Cancer, visit her website, theaftercancer.com. And as always, if you want to follow us and our journey into investigating in the startup ecosystem here in Portugal and the inspiring founders and the stories, please subscribe, follow, like, you know what to do. Thank you.